Nobody tells you about the part where your neighbor knocks on your door with a plate of homemade food just because you look tired. Nobody tells you about the morning espresso that costs less than $1 but tastes better than anything a $7 flat white ever delivered. And nobody tells you that within 3 months of living in Albania, you might start to wonder why you waited so long to actually feel alive. This video is not about cost of living. We've done that. Today we're going deeper into what a regular Tuesday actually feels like in Albania. The rhythms, the people, the frustrations, the surprises, and the moments that make expats look up from their laptop and realize they've accidentally built a life they genuinely love. But wait, before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment "I subscribe" below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. The first thing that hits you when you start living in Albania, not visiting, actually living, is the pace. Not slow in a lazy way. Slow in a deliberate way. Albanians are not rushing towards something they can't name. Lunch is not eaten at a desk. Coffee is not consumed while walking. Sitting in a cafe for 2 hours without ordering anything extra is not considered strange. It's considered normal human behavior. For most people arriving from the UK, North America, or Western Europe, this is quietly disorienting at first. Then it becomes the thing you protect most fiercely about your new life. James is 44, a former financial analyst from London. He moved to Tirana in 2024 expecting to maintain his old pace in a cheaper location. What he found instead was a city that gently refused to accommodate that frantic energy. "Albania didn't slow me down," he said. "It showed me I'd been running from nothing." Daily life in Tirana in 2026 starts, for most expats, somewhere in the Bloka neighborhood. This was once a gated enclave reserved exclusively for Albania's communist-era political elite. Today it is the beating heart of the city. Tree-lined streets, outdoor cafe terraces, independent bookshops, art galleries, rooftop bars, and a mix of locals and internationals that gives it an energy unlike anywhere else in the Balkans. Morning coffee here is a ritual. Albanian coffee culture is deeply influenced by both Italian and Ottoman traditions. You'll find espresso as precise and serious as anything in Milan, sitting alongside the thick, slow-brewed Turkish-style coffee that older Albanians still swear by. You pick your cafe. You sit. You talk or you don't. No one is rushing you out. By mid-morning, the city is fully alive. Skanderbeg Square, Tirana's massive central plaza, fills with locals, students, and the occasional bewildered tourist who hasn't figured out yet that Albania's greatest attraction is not a single monument but the texture of ordinary life happening all around them. The food scene in 2026 has evolved faster than almost anyone predicted. Tirana now has restaurants representing cuisines from across the world: Japanese, Lebanese, Mexican, Georgian, sitting alongside the traditional Albanian restaurants that anchor the culture. A Bayrak bakery on the corner. A fish restaurant along the artificial lake. A rooftop bar with views across the city to the mountains beyond. But the most important food experience in Albania still happens in someone's home. Hospitality here is not performative. It is structural, built into the culture at a level most Westerners haven't experienced since their grandparents' generation. The concept of besa, Albania's sacred cultural code of honor and hospitality, means that when an Albanian invites you in, they mean it completely. You will be fed until you cannot move. You will be offered the best seat. You will leave with something: fruit from the garden, a jar of homemade preserves, an invitation to return next Sunday. Anna is 31. A writer from Chicago who moved to Saranda in late 2024. She had lived in 4 countries before Albania and described herself as someone who was good at being a stranger. Within 6 weeks in Saranda, her landlord's mother was teaching her to make tave kosi, a traditional Albanian baked lamb dish, every Thursday afternoon. "I've never felt less like a foreigner anywhere in my life," she said. Now let's talk about the parts that nobody puts on the Instagram highlight reel, because living in Albania is not without its friction. Bureaucracy is real. Getting official documents processed, navigating permits, dealing with utility companies, these things move slowly and occasionally require patience that will test you. If you come from a country where systems just work quietly in the background, Albania will occasionally remind you, firmly, that it is still a country in transition. Infrastructure outside Tirana and the main coastal cities is uneven. Roads in rural areas are improving but inconsistent. Public transport between cities exists. The Fergan minibus network is extensive and cheap, but it runs on its own schedule and its own logic, and you will need to make peace with that. And the language. Albanian is linguistically unlike almost anything else in Europe. It is its own branch of the Indo-European family, sharing deep roots with nothing obvious. In Tirana, English is widely spoken among younger people and in business settings. Outside the capital, you will need patience, gesture, and the genuine goodwill of locals who will meet you halfway every single time, even if the words don't quite land. Before we get to what daily life looks like beyond the capital, drop your answer in the comments right now. Has anything you've heard so far surprised you about what life in Albania actually looks like day to day? I read every comment and the conversation always goes somewhere unexpected. Let's keep going. Life along the Albanian Riviera, Saranda, Himera, Ksamil, operates on a completely different frequency from Tirana. If the capital gives you urban energy and cultural momentum, the coast gives you something rare, actual stillness. Mornings start with the Ionian Sea. Clear, warm, impossibly blue water that in high season draws visitors from across Europe and in the shoulder months belongs almost entirely to the small communities and expats who've chosen to stay. The rhythm here is dictated by light and tide and the smell of grilling fish drifting off the waterfront restaurants by early afternoon. For retirees especially, this stretch of coastline in 2026 offers something that once seemed exclusive to the very wealthy, a Mediterranean coastal life that is genuinely unhurried, genuinely beautiful, and genuinely sustainable without a large private income. People walk here. They swim. They sit on terraces and watch the water change color through the afternoon. They eat well. They sleep properly. The expat community across Albania in 2026 has matured in an interesting way. It is large enough that you will not feel isolated. There are organized meetups in Tirana, online communities, co-working spaces with built-in social infrastructure, and enough international faces that you will find your people quickly. But it has not yet reached the scale where it becomes a bubble, where expats only socialize with other expats and the host country becomes a backdrop rather than a home. That balance, community without isolation, integration without loss of identity, is genuinely rare in international living. Most destinations tip one way or the other. Albania in 2026 sits in the sweet spot, and the people who are there right now are acutely aware of how temporary that balance might be. Here's what living in Albania is really like in 2026. It is slower mornings and longer meals. It is neighbors who learn your name before you learn theirs. It is frustrating paperwork and extraordinary sunsets on the same day. It is a city changing fast enough to be exciting but slowly enough to still feel like yours. It is the specific feeling of living somewhere that the world hasn't fully discovered yet, and knowing, somewhere in the back of your mind, that the clock on that is ticking. The people who came to Albania for the low cost of living often stay for something they didn't expect to find. Not the prices. The life. So here's what I want you to think about after watching this. Not whether Albania is cheap enough, but whether the life you just heard described sounds like something you actually want. The pace, the people, the food, friction, the beauty, the realness of it. Tell me in the comments, what part of Albanian daily life resonated with you most? And what would you find hardest to adjust to? Those two answers together will tell you more about whether this move is right for you than any budget breakdown ever could. Share this with someone who's been curious about Albania but wasn't sure what life actually looks like on the ground. And subscribe if you haven't already, because this series is just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.